Hey everybody, this is Dwight Peters from quarterwaters.com, the site for social entrepreneurs, where we have successful social entrepreneurs come on our program, talk about the impact they're making, and also share helpful business tips. Now, today we're going to find out how a social entrepreneur and his social enterprise is creating shared value. Today on the program, we have with us Eduardo Balarezo, the founder of Lonesome George and Company. Now, Lonesome George and Company is a social enterprise that combines branded apparel and education to ignite a mind shift towards global interdependence. Eduardo, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me here today, Dwight.
How was that? I felt like I was kind of, rushing it, but, I think people get the gist of it.
No, absolutely. I think it was a great introduction to what we're doing.
Awesome. To the viewers, they're probably wondering like what's going on back here behind me. I don't have the white background up. I don't know. There was a problem with the light. When I put the white background up, I couldn't see myself. Something was happening with the light, so I decided to take it down. So you get access into the craziness. I'm in my room/studio, so they're gonna see like all the papers I have up with my crazy ideas written on. But Eduardo, let's get to it, man. Welcome to the program. Give our viewers a brief background or a clearer understanding. What exactly is Lonesome George and Company?
As you said, Dwight, it's a social enterprise that combines branded apparel with educational learning. It's a nonprofit arm that is the outward bound component of it, and a for-profit combining a hybrid platform. The for-profit story is the Lonesome George products that we manufacture, we sell, and that is the seed capital to fund the education programs.
All right. So excellent. Perfect. I clearly understand what you guys are doing. But why? Eduardo, how did you get started in this? Take me back to the beginning.
Um, yes, it's interesting. My background is in finance and management, and I participated in conservation and education funds and foundations. And I realized that it was hard to follow the philanthropy and charity model, which can be perverse. And we decided that in order to fund our projects, we needed to create a recurrent income. And to do so, we developed a brand.
Okay.
That brand is Lonesome George and Co.
So
Our, yep, go
what
ahead.
came first was the nonprofit. You already had this project going.
Right. Well, the nonprofits were part of the companies I was working for.
Okay.
These were big conglomerates that had participation in some conservation and education foundations.
All right.
And I was the CEO of those conglomerates, and I would sit at the board of these foundations and conservation funds. At one point, Outward Bound, which is a experiential learning foundation, really caught my attention. That's experiential learning. That is getting people out of their comfort zone in order to create mind shift.
Okay.
And to fund those programs, we were having some problems because, as you see, foundations source funds via philanthropy, charity, grants, and that can be very frustrating.
Yeah.
So that's how I decided to develop a brand and market that brand. My background is for profit, so I devised a way to create a business that would provide us recurrent income, not to depend solely on the philanthropy and on the charity side to fund these education programs.
Exactly. And, I talk about this time and time again. I think I almost talk about this in every single one of my interview. I love nonprofits. I've been working with nonprofits over the past year, and my viewers are going to hear me say it again. They do such a kick-ass job at what they do, but the biggest obstacle they always have is sustainable money, recurring money to help fund the program. So what you did, you noticed that same problem, and you were proactive, and you created a for-profit. You created a for-profit division to get this going. So what was your initial steps? How did you get it
Uh,
going?
yeah, it's a hybrid platform, and the initial steps we needed to come up with several challenging steps, and that was devising the story behind it, devising a product or finding a product that we could monetize. How were we going to convince people that this hybrid model would work? Then finding our inspiration, finding that icon that would serve as inspiration to this, and that's when Lonesome George came about. I don't know if you know who Lonesome George is. Do you know who Lonesome George is, Dwight?
I know who Lonesome George is, but please share with our viewers.
Lonesome George is the last surviving pinta tortoise. You see, in the Galapagos, there were 16 species of tortoises, and there's only 13 remaining. Lonesome George is the last one of his species.
Wow.
They come from the Pinta Island, the northern island in the archipelago, and there's only one remaining, and that's Lonesome George. He lives at the Charles Darwin Station. And he's our inspiration because you see, when people come across Lonesome George's story, they the first thing they want to do is, let's find a mate for him. Let's reproduce him. You know, he's the last one. How sad. But for us, when I saw him, the message was different. The message was, don't let this happen again.
Yeah.
And it is, I am in this situation because of the decisions you took, and what we need is people to take wiser decisions, better choices, and please don't let this happen again. So I was sitting there and I was like, so how do I do this? And that's when the whole experiential learning and education and Outward Bound came across. By that time I was already the president of Outward Bound in Ecuador. And I believe in that methodology to create mind shift. So I said, I am going to use Outward Bound to raise awareness such that this doesn't happen again. So for me, the story or the inspiration with Lonesome George was, don't let this happen again. Create or inspire agents of change to take better choices. Because in the end, we all have a Lonesome George, Dwight.
Yeah.
I mean, what is your Lonesome George? And that is, what we really need to inspire people to think about. What is your Lonesome George in your community? And what are you going to do in order to change or act on it? So that was the story. That was the inspiration behind it. And that's when we branded the Lonesome George name, and when we came with the messages that we put in our apparel, and when we came with our essence, which is outfitting agents of change. So this for-profit company generates the funds to finance Outward Bound programs, and that is what we call the Academy of Agents of Change. The Academy of Agents of Change is where the Outward Bound programs take place, and we have scholarships for youth in the Galapagos to go through an Outward Bound program and awaken them, and to really make sure that they realize that they are agents of change, that their decisions count, that decisions have consequence, that there's a leader within them, that we teach them resourcefulness, respect to others, compassion above all, because compassion is very important.
Definitely.
And that is what our inspiration is, or the inspiration is behind this line of apparel and this business.
Beautiful story. I got it. When I was doing my pre-interview research and I came across who Lonesome George actually was, I was blown away. You know, I thought you guys just happened to pick a name, but to see actually the story behind it was amazing. So you guys created this for-profit arm. You get it branded. Can you share with our viewers so they could get a good idea? What are your revenues so far? How much have you guys been able to pull off?
We've been. This whole idea started. It was an idea back in 2006, and it started. We opened our first store in 2007. End of 2007. So we've been, in business for a little over 4 years, and we've managed to reach, our $1 million. If that is a threshold for us, as a small company that is trying to make a difference, we committed from the beginning to take 10% and invest 10% of our revenues. And that's very important. Not many people, a lot of people hear this, percentage number out there. Oh, we do this, we do that. But it's important to distinguish where are you taking that percentage from. And in our case, it's 10% from our top line. That means from our revenues, not from our profit, not from our income at the bottom. No, from our top income, from our top revenue, we take 10% and we invest it into our bound program. So initially, we started with 3% doing scholarships in Galapagos. We slowly climbed to 5% when we started programs with the Galapagos National Park and with the Galapagos Tortoise program. And 2 years ago, that is in 2010, we reached our 10%. So today, we are devoting 10% of our revenues as initially committed to. And going forward, we've touched, you want to get some numbers on how many people we've put through our program.
Please speak on the impact.
Right. So the impact of this, I was sharing with you that we have direct agents of change and indirect agents of change. That's what we call. The direct are the ones that come through our programs, and we have close to 300 people so far.
Okay.
And indirect are all those people that share our products and buy our products and help us somehow. They become agents of change in helping us fund this. And we have in excess of 25,000 people, already using our products. And that is great because there's another sort of legacy behind all this. Lonesome George cannot leave the Galapagos. Lonesome George is the last of his kind. But as we sell these products and go around the world, Lonesome George spread his presence,
message,
around the world. So he cannot reproduce. He's the only one. But as someone sports a Lonesome George, is sending a message, and he's there in that message. So
hence the name Lonesome George and Company. So he's really not alone.
He's not alone.
So all right, cool, man. Let's break it down now. So the business, how did you exactly get this start? Like, try to give our viewers as much detail as possible, so if they're trying to do this, they could do it as well. What was your startup capital? Was this bootstrapped? How did you go about doing this? Did you have a brick and mortar store? Was this an actual physical store or online? Break it down like that.
Yes, the online came in 2000 and end of 2009. It was a brick and mortar. The way it happened is I brainstormed with a dear friend of mine and co-founder. He's still part of it. He's got his own business. My dear friend Francesco Galizzugaru, and he's a good friend of mine. And we brainstormed on how we could structure this. Okay. And as we debated and we funded this, with $10,000.
All right.
What we decided to commit to this sort of like crazy idea, and
trust me, I know about crazy ideas. I got them all over my wall. Yeah.
Exactly. So with those $20,000, we developed a story. We developed a logo. We wanted to to make sure that we had an image to it. And we committed to our first inventory. Okay. And we searched throughout. We knew that we had to have a very high-end, very high-quality, good design. So we searched for it throughout in Europe, in manufacturing in China, manufacturing in India, and we ended up with Peru, which has amazing cotton. That's where I'm from, actually. I'm originally from Peru, and so we went back there, and we managed to get some Pima organic cotton, which was amazing, to use for this. And it also somehow was part of what we were trying to do, be conscious about environment and the resources we used. So that's how it started, with $20,000, and also a commitment to open a shop right outside of the Charles Darwin station. And why did we do that? I lived in Ecuador for many years. At that point, I was running this conglomerate, a big conglomerate in Ecuador. So I would go to the Galapagos often. I had lived in Ecuador, so I know people in Ecuador, and I was raised there from 8 to 18 years. So I have a lot of friends. So that was my connection to Ecuador. And so we said, okay, here it is, Lonesome George, good high-end quality T-shirts, good story, good essence. Let's open a store right outside of the Charles Darwin station, where most tourists, going to see or going to visit the Charles Darwin station will come out and see our store. And that way we would, sort of have a captive audience. So we thought about that in that way. And it really worked. It really did work. We had tourists coming, from out of the Charles Darwin station, looking at the store. They had just, visited Lonesome George, and they would stop. They would hear our story and start buying. And that was how it all started. At one point, we realized, after 6 months, that we were making some good money. And that money was very useful for the programs that the Outward Bound programs that we were trying to.
Do you remember how much you did in the first 6 months?
I believe it was something like close to 100,000. It was
And out of that 3%, you guys were already committed to the 3%.
Right, from the start, from the first T-shirt that sold, what we did is we looked for a local NGO. We weren't prepared. I spoke to some of the big NGOs in the islands. I had already identified the fact that we needed to contribute to education. That was, my call into the pressing issues that we all social entrepreneurs have in our minds. And for me, it was education. So from the beginning, we looked at how could we contribute to education, and we ended up closing a strategic alliance with a local NGO called Fundación Escalesia. And Fundación Escalesia is a top school, a bilingual school in the Galapagos, and we committed to donate 3% of our sales to scholarships and to promote the Outward Bound curriculum in the school. So that's how it started. And it was, Fundación Escalesia was key. We ended that relationship last year, because now we focused everything on the Outward Bound Foundation, which I told you I'm president of in Ecuador. So now we have our own program. So now the 10% goes directly to Outward Bound.
All right. So, Eduardo, you guys seem to have a perfect location. You were capturing the interest of the tourists that were coming around that area. 6 months, you guys pulled in close to 100,000. What were some of the challenges? You're making it sound too easy. You guys just got hit by the lucky stick.
No, right? My goodness. I was having this conversation with my father the other day, and I was telling him, Dad, it's incredible because, you see and you hear all these stories about how people make it.
Yeah.
Or how people sort of oh my God, Tom's shoes, look at that, this guy just thought about it and suddenly he's making millions.
And voila, it just took off. But there's a behind the scene,
there's a behind the scenes
yeah,
that requires a lot of dedication, a lot of focus, a lot of reviewing your strategy, your value chain, understanding what you're trying to do, and having that passion for it. Because not one, but you are going to be tempted to leave everything more than once,
Yeah.
because it's very hard. It's very hard. It is, it takes a lot of convincing, not only other people, but convincing yourself that you're
Yeah.
doing the right thing.
To keep going.
And exactly. So you have to have your short-term wins, which is what keeps you afloat. You need to have a long-term strategy, which is, okay, I am going to reach $10 million by 2005, and I'm going to fund $1 million into education. And in the meantime, in the first 6 months, I've already made my 100,000. I've already contributed three. Today, we've already made $1 million, and we've contributed, close to 80,000. Because if you compound that, we haven't reached the 100,000 because we started with three. But you see, those short-term wins are what keep you alive, or what keep you going. And then you have your long-term, and it requires diligence, probably is the word. Just stay focused, and committed, and make sure that the passion is there. That you're doing something with passion.
It's funny that you speak about that, the short-term wins. I don't know. It was just over the weekend, and I've been telling my friends this. Celebrate the small wins. And I had a problem with that. I tell my friends what I'm doing, and a lot of people, they don't get it. They're like, you're interviewing who? Social entrepreneurs? What is Quarter Waters? Quarter Waters, that sounds crazy. First off, the name doesn't even have anything to do with what I'm doing, but the reason why I picked the name Quarter Waters is because over here in the States, there used to be a drink called Quarter Waters back when we were kids. And the reason why I named the website that is because when I was a child, I used to drink that all the time. And it reminded me of my childhood. And when we were kids, we used to dream of these crazy ideas, but you couldn't tell us no. Our imagination ran wild. And that's the feeling I want to inspire to people today, that your imagination could still run wild. You could still do whatever you dream of. And this is a new website, and I have been able, I think you're like my 14th interview, and I had to celebrate over the weekend. Like, dude, I'm doing this. I'm reaching out to social entrepreneurs, and they're hitting me back, and we're having amazing interviews. My goal is to create a big community. But before I reach that stage, I have to do the initial work. And while I'm doing the initial work, I make sure I celebrate the small victories, because this is what keeps me going. This is how I stay motivated and look forward to tomorrow's interview. Just keep building, keep building. Talk about it a little bit more. At what point did you have to remind yourself? Can you give us like an exact moment when you said, man, I got to remind myself to celebrate the small wins and keep going?
Yes, there's been several of those, but Galapagos is not an easy community.
Yeah.
And I guess no community is easy once you're trying to introduce a new concept and a new way of doing things. You see, Dwight, change is a constant in our lives.
Yeah.
But it's the only constant variable in our lives. We just, yeah, you see what I'm saying? I mean, people tend to gravitate around control. And if you have control around things, you feel comfortable. And you don't realize that change is a constant in your life. So when you bring a new concept, when you bring something that's different, when you bring a different angle to a community, it's very hard sometimes, and you find a lot of resistance.
Yeah.
And I've had some of those in the Galapagos, and I've kept my commitment, and I've shown the results. And at one point, as we were shifting from the relationship that we had with the local NGO to the larger Outward Bound Foundation, where I'm now at the board of Outward Bound International. So I oversee the 40 schools around the world in that board. So it was a natural shift for us. We had some of that. We had some of those low moments,
Yeah.
People just, sort of just not liking the fact that we were moving into into a bigger structure. And that at that point, you really have to focus on the long-term goals and make sure that you are achieving and that you are explaining people why are you making those choices and those moves. It's very important to what I explained before. Compassion.
Yeah.
Compassion is a key pillar in Outward Bound, and compassion is what makes us human. And compassion and empathy is very important to put yourself in someone else's shoes before uttering the first word of advice.
Yeah.
And I that's what I had to do. I really had to really focus, understand what this community was telling me, and then move on. So that was a challenging situation for me.
All right, man. See, this is just great, man, because like we said a little bit earlier, people hear the story of successful people, whatever it is, whatever you do and you're successful. And, I guess the way our society is programmed, we just think success, it came easy, man, how are they doing that? But people really need to start to understand this takes a lot of work. Like you said, it takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of self-energizing. Sometimes you have to be your biggest hype support. You have to be your biggest supporter to say, look, you have a goal, execute. In the title of the program, we talked about shared value. You want to speak about that a little bit more?
Right. I think it's key. I think it's key, Dwight, because we hear a lot about social entrepreneurship, and it is key to define what social entrepreneurship is. You see, it's definitely it's definitely a new term. Probably Ashoka, Bill Drayton from Ashoka is the person that started using this. But social entrepreneurship is what the entrepreneur was to the business model. Social entrepreneur is to society and to community. So the social entrepreneur locks within his mind innovation, pure innovation, and that's what we need to unleash. And the best model to unleash that, I think, is a creating shared value model. And this is not a model that I put myself together. This is something that it's been researched for a long time, and Mr. Porter from Harvard University has talked about it, several times. But it's lately picking up, and I think somehow it resonates with what us social entrepreneurs are doing. And let me just go into it a little bit. What I said before. Corporate social responsibility is a term that is widely known and a lot of people use, but it was a reaction to external pressure, a reaction by firms and corporations from external pressure into doing something to fix the externalities that their businesses were creating.
Yeah.
And suddenly, we are now into a creating shared value, which means understanding your core assets and understanding your core principles as a business and utilizing those in order to, as you advance the business, also promote social benefits and also take care of the environment. You see, businesses sought out a way to deal with externalities by throwing money to it. Mm. And now creating shared value means, no, let's not just throw money to it. Let's understand how our business works and then how it benefits the community.
Yeah.
And how it benefits, the environment. And they are realizing, and this is very important, they are realizing that is paying off. It used to be a cost. It used to be, oh dear, once again, where's the corporate social responsibility department? Let's find a way to throw some money so they leave us alone. Suddenly, as they analyze that this is not going to go away, and they better look into their businesses and see how they can promote social benefits and the environment, suddenly the equation of value or the equation of profit, if you want to put it that way, includes the social and the environmental variable. You see? And suddenly what's happening, Dwight, and this is the most interesting part of it, is that not all profit is equal.
Yeah,
And people are realizing that profit with a social component is a higher version of capitalism. You
it is.
see? Because at that point, you have what's called benefit for all. You see?
Definitely. Nah, definitely.
We
I'm getting goosebumps just speaking about this because I love this, you know. And you touched a good point. You said companies, corporations with their social responsibility department. That's very reactionary. And in contrast to social entrepreneurs or social enterprise, believe it or not, it's very revolutionary. Social entrepreneurs, they have it embedded, like we talked about in the pre-interview. It's embedded in their culture. It's embedded from the get-go. That's the main reason why they're doing what they're doing, is to bring benefits to society as a whole, instead of just the shareholders at the top. This is a social movement. This is a social imprint. So I get it 100%, and it's exciting.
right, and this is using capitalism, using a capitalist model in order to create benefits, social benefits. So we are all for capitalism. I mean, I mean, and I, for one, the model that I've created is based on capitalism. I am using capitalism. I mean, if you want to go to the nitty gritty of it, I've identified that segment, which is what I call that light green consumer that wants to do good but doesn't know how.
Yeah.
And I've encountered that light green consumer in that tourist right now, and now I'm spreading that to in America, which is probably the largest light green consumer, to just give them an alternative to do good while they are purchasing. Because in the end, this is all a result, Dwight, of this green movement. This green movement is not, I mean, it's not a movement anymore because it's just not there. But what it left was a more conscious consumer,
Yeah.
a consumer that when he picks up something, he's like looking at the label. He
Yeah.
wants to know what goes into that product. And he chooses the product that somehow gives him that satisfaction of doing good. So that is more and more, and you're using the consumer. It's not his fault. Consumerism, globalization, materialism is not going to go away.
It's not.
So might as well use it.
And
Let's use
direct it.
that and redirect it. It's a Robin Hood kind of operation, you see. But
Definitely.
we've set that up, and we're using that purchasing power of the consumer in order to and that is what creating shared value is about, is analyzing your product, see how your product, you can make a good, sound product that somehow has impact in society and impact in the environment. The next stage after you analyze your product is you analyze your value chain. What do you use? What are you using? Raw materials to create that, making sure that it comply with your philosophy behind it. And then the next thing, or the next variable, is clusters of development.
Yeah.
So you find a product, you analyze the value chain, and you create clusters of development. Clusters of development is you impact your community. So in if we sum this up and we use the Lonesome George example, we have that mind shift impact model that we call. And the mind shift impact model is, mind is, we analyze our product and we create awareness via our apparel. We go to shift, which is we fund outward bound programs to create mind shift. And then we impact by investing in our human capital fund, which is Ashoka, to create or inspire social entrepreneurs. Those kids that we've inspired as agents of change, now we ask them, what do you want to change? What is your Lonesome George in your community? And we fund them, and they start creating change in their community. So that's the mind shift impact model. If we could replicate that mind shift impact model into every major corporation in the US or in Europe or let's just not,
Worldwide.
worldwide, then you would be having a massive impact on breaking paradigms, on realizing that your choices matter, and then impacting your community with the work that you do.
You see, Eduardo, I have this business advisor. I'm getting ready to enter this business competition where I have an idea that I want to switch things, and he's an older gentleman. He's a cool dude, man. And the reason why I keep going back to him is because he gives me he pushes me. I came to him with this idea of social entrepreneurship, and he hates it. He says, "Oh, it doesn't make sense. There are no such thing as social entrepreneurship. Either you're a capitalist, for profit, or you're a nonprofit. It doesn't work." And over here in the States, there's a new movement going on with the B corporations. I'm not sure if
Right.
you guys following that. And it's an exciting thing just to bring change. And you're right, because one of the things that he stated was, consumers are so hard to change. But when I speak to people like you, yeah, it's hard to change, but it's not impossible. You guys are doing it. It takes time. It takes planning. It takes a clear message, but it is possible. And that's very inspiring, man. It truly is, man.
What happens, Dwight, is that um, not everything grows in a straight line.
Yeah.
The straight line is a something our human brains design and created. Everything in nature is circular.
Yeah.
So it's about thinking cause effect. But in any case, going back to the linear growth, it doesn't exist. Growth and change happens in S curves. It's what's called. You start at the bottom, you have a big grow, and then it flattens, and then you jump to the next X curve. Those S curves are eras. Eras.
Yeah.
Era number 1, era number 2, era number 3. The problem is, or the situation is, that when you jump from one era to the next one is very messy, because what drives eras? It's technology.
Yeah.
It's what is the technology of that specific era. When that technology doesn't work anymore, that's when the S curve starts flattening, and you need to jump to the new technology or the new era. Okay, last era, or the era that it's finishing, is the era of the entrepreneurs that really amassed via business and capitalism incredible amount of wealth. The next era I see is the era of the social entrepreneurs, where we have to combine and make sure that is somehow somehow incorporates the social and the environmental aspect of it. Now, when you jump from one era to the other, it's a lot of mess and chaos going around. Your advisor wants to keep using the old technology,
and it's not going to work.
And that is like using the bicycle when you already have the automobile. Okay?
Yeah, or the horse and buggy when I have the bicycle. It's not
no matter how fast he pedals, it's just a bicycle, and you're already on the automobile. You're just, so that's what's happening. That's I guess at this point we are in between eras, and it's chaotic, and people are understanding and trying to figure out what's gonna take us to this, what I said before, higher version of capitalism. You see, we're leaving this capital, because again, there is no better economic model than capitalism to create wealth, and I think that we agree.
Yeah, definitely. I had to see, being a college student, you know what happens. You go to college and you start thinking about everything. But I did a lot of soul searching over the year, and I had to admit, man, no other form of economic system has brought about so much change in the shortest amount of time other than capitalism. And if you take a step back, if you really take a step back, you have to understand, like you said, the world moves in eras, and it's still growing. It's growing. It's growing. It's maturing, if you will even say. It's actually maturing to the next step. So I came back and I said, man, I'm seeing something, and I really like this, and I think this could work, man. And I'm seeing the fruits of its labor, even in the early stage. So I think I agree 150% with you. social entrepreneurship, social enterprise is the next wave. And you're seeing people, their whole paradigms are slowly shifting. They're more conscious about what they buy, like you said, or what's in their product, or who's benefiting from these products. And all it takes is more awareness and people like you to tell your story and just get
Well,
it out there.
Dwight, you are an agent of change, and that is your Lonesome George. Your Lonesome George is to spread the news, and you're doing it, and I commend you for it.
Thank you,
We
man.
should. You are an agent of change, absolutely.
I appreciate it. Eduardo, is there anything else you want to tell social entrepreneurs that are watching this program right now? Any last bit of advice?
What I tell everyone, and I was just telling you, I mean, no matter who you are, no matter what you do, there is a Lonesome George situation in your community. Find it and act on it.
You hear it, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to share this with my viewers real quick. I got something from Albie Zakes, the VP of Media at TerraCycle. I did an interview with him, and he sent me back this. He said, Quarter Waters is essential reading, viewing, and sharing for social entrepreneurs. Learn from leading experts in sustainable businesses and share ideas with fellow entrepreneurs. What are you waiting for? Come learn how to grow your business. Albie, thank you. To our viewers that are watching this program, I just put up a donation page. Feel free to check it out. Whatever you could donate, just leave something. We're trying to make sure that we keep Quarter Waters going, and we want to make sure that it continues to grow. So if you're enjoying the interviews, if you're enjoying what you're hearing, if you're enjoying what you're viewing, if you're enjoying what you're learning, and if you really applying these stuffs, please feel free to help us to keep this program going. How did I do with that, Eduardo? Did I sound all cheesy and whatnot?
Oh, you got it right on.
There we
Yeah.
go. Boom, virtual boom. Ladies and gentlemen, there we have it. Eduardo Balarezo. See, I'm even getting better with my Spanish, man. From Lonesome George and Company. Eduardo, thanks for coming on the program, man.
Thank you very much for having me.